Howdy ho ho, my good humans. How are you all doing? Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Appreciate y'all for stopping by to talk the video games here today on the Ramble Report on the old Unnecessary Rambling Network. And we got a big one to talk about today. Ghost of Yotei just came out. I have probably put about, I don't know, maybe 6 or so hours into it, 7 hours into it, something like that. I got home yesterday around 5, 6 and pretty much played until midnight. So probably about, when accounting for little breaks here and there, probably 7, 8 hours overall with Yotei, because I put a couple hours in this morning as well. And we'll talk about that when we get to it. That's a video game right there, my friends. That is certainly a video game. But yeah, appreciate y'all for tuning in. Shout out to Captain Corndog, Sadek, and Vin for keeping the lights on over at the old Ramble Report headquarters, for supporting at that shout out tier on Patreon or on the YouTube membership side of things. And so before we jump into actually talking about the old Yotei, how about we take let's see here. We got Vin writing in on the YouTube membership side of things saying, what are your top 5 white whale games? Meaning video games you've perpetually yearned to play yet continue to elude you for one reason or another. Like hardware exclusivity, games that were exclusive to consoles that you didn't own, delisted games, stuff like that. And he says, as someone who's unfortunately never owned a gaming PC, my top 2 white whale games forever endure No One Lives Forever 1 and 2 and Medal of Honor Allied Assault. These are both PC titles that are still, exclusive to the personal computer. So for me, I'm kind of in that same boat where I've never owned a PC other than, laptops here and there, but I was never a PC kid growing up. So there's a lot in that library of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 1. That's a huge one. This is a huge one that I wanted to play and, definitely still do. Is the audio coming through for this trailer? Shit. Let me pause that. My bad. But yeah, that's one that I wanted to play and still want to play. I'm kind of surprised that for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 1 that there's not a Night Dive remaster, there's not a Virtuous sort of remake, or this is one of those games that I could be wrong. Is there some sort of licensing issue or something like that? It wouldn't seem so, right? Because they're still making multiple vampire related games that are from this IP directly. So I don't know. I mean, they're about to make Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 that's coming out in, Jesus Christ, that is coming out soon. We need to, that's actually something we should probably do in this episode is take a look through all the October games that are coming out, because Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is dropping in October, only a couple weeks away from that. And it feels like I went into GameStop and I was talking to the manager. We always just kind of shoot the shit at the store, and I went in and we were talking about, because I was picking up Yotei, and he was like, you excited for this? Are you a big fan of Tsushima? And I was like, yeah, I'm probably like a 8 out of 10 level excited. I know what to expect. I think what I'm going to get is good, because the last thing from this franchise was really good. I really loved Tsushima. I think it's going to be more of Tsushima. I was like, but I don't know if there's anything coming out in the near future that I'm just over the moon excited for, where I'm like, I have no idea what it's going to be. I have no idea what to expect. It could be incredible. It could be horrible. And he was like, I kind of feel that way about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 that's coming out, very soon. And I was like, dude, that's actually a great example. Because with this, don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting 9s and 10s out of 10s for the reviews, but this is one of those style of games where I don't know what to expect. When I look at this, there's different times where I see different things that make me feel very differently about this game. And it could be one of those ones that you just jump into. Kind of think like Marvel, the Guardians of the Galaxy game that came right after the Avengers game, where they were going into it super, super negative, and there was that close association to the Avengers, and it was like, well, dude, this is Eidos Montreal making this. It's a totally different team, and I obviously this isn't the exact same scenario or anything like that, but I remember people being just blown away, so surprised when Guardians of the Galaxy came out, and they went in thinking it was going to be a 5, 6 out of 10 at best, and it's like, oh no, this is a genuine 8.5 style game. Once again, I'm not expecting that for Bloodlines 2. I think personally I would be satisfied with a 7, 7.5 for this, but I am really, really damn curious about this game, because like even the footage you're seeing, some of that combat does look kind of nasty, and it's all going to depend on like the storytelling, because that's the thing that they really, Vampire, the Masquerade Bloodlines 1, that fan base, they are there for the narrative, you know what I mean? And it seems like that's still the one thing with Bloodlines 2 that we're very unsure about. Like, we're very unsure what this thing, how it's going to come together narratively. I haven't seen a trailer yet where I've been like, ooh, okay, now I'm intrigued by what you're trying to present to me on a storytelling front. But a lot of the Zelda stuff is kind of in that camp for me as well. Like Ocarina of Time, which is running on the screen right now. That's one I've never played this game at all. Like, I have no memory of ever even booting into this world and experiencing a minute of Ocarina of Time. And this is commonly viewed as like the greatest video game in the history of great video games. And it feels almost sacrilegious to have not experienced this at all. But kind of a lot of Nintendo games are in that vein for me, where I just didn't grow up with Nintendo consoles. I had, an NES back in the day, and I loved the NES. I loved playing through, for me, the NES, it still wasn't like a Mario machine, or it wasn't a Zelda machine. To me, the NES was like playing fucking Duck Hunt with my dad, playing Mike Tyson's Punch Out. I was so young that like I really had no comprehensive understanding of even how to move my hands on the controller. And thankfully back then the controls were so damn simplified that a 3-year-old could play an NES and at least have some grasp of like, okay, there's very limited button combinations that you have to remember whatsoever here. So it was much more simplified to get into, and then I'm very grateful for the NES being my first system. But a lot of the Nintendo library, like, I don't have much experience of at all. And I've thought about that a lot, especially with like the Switch 2 and them having through the online store a lot of that retro catalog available. What do they call it? They have their own little emulation system. Okay, yeah, so it's called the Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pass, and that's what allows you access to these classic games that you're seeing on the screen here. So, and it's saying it's only $4.99. Is that correct? That can't be fucking right. $50 for a year to go back and play all those old classic games? I might jump into that like immediately to, experience some of those games for the first time that I have never played. And I know that I would be able to appreciate them a lot more as an adult. As a kid, that was the thing of Mario and a lot of the Nintendo-styled games, was I always viewed them as games for children. And I don't know, when you're a kid, you have those sticking points. You have those... It's that thing of you want to be cool when you're a kid, so you don't want to play the kiddie games. But now it's like, damn, those kiddie games look fucking fun as shit, like going through and playing Astrobot, which is Astrobot's such a weird example, right? Where all the references and all the callbacks and everything about Astrobot seems like it would only appeal to people who are like 35 and older, but it kind of by nature, just by at least visual presentation alone, you look at that and you're like, yeah, that's a game for children, but it's really not at all. Games are games. A good game is a good game. You know, whoever the target demographic, the target audience is, all that shit be damned. If it's a good, fun video game, it's a good, fun video game. So I think I know that's not, I guess Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 1 would be like my number one answer of if I could say, snap my fingers right now and get a remake or a remaster of a game that I have never played in my life, it would probably be Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 1. But I do think that I don't know when this is going to happen, but at some point, because I'm looking at 2026. Yeah, let's pull that up real quick. I mean, 2026 is already looking insane for video game releases. So I got the Game Informer website pulled up, and you start off in January. January's a little bit light. You have Code Vein 2 is probably the big game in January. But then you go into February. You have Deus Ex Remastered. You have, let's see, Neo 3 on February 6th. Yakuza 3 with the Dark Ties. I think Dark Ties is a brand new story. So I might jump into that just for the brand new story if I can play that standalone. I don't really want to play Yakuza 3, but I'd like to play the standalone story. So that's on the 12th of February. Tides of Tomorrow. And then you have Resident Evil Requiem on the 27th of February. You have 007 and Sorrows at the end of March. You have Crimson Desert at the end of March. And then into Grand Theft Auto 6 in May. And then nothing in April, nothing in, June, July, August. Given a lot of space before and after May. But even just with what we have right there alone in February, it is a stacked year for 2026. And it's only obviously going to get more and more stacked as we finish off 2025 and publishers start announcing their 2026 dates. It's like, yeah, there used to be a time where I could jump into my backlog but now it's like there's so much shit coming out nonstop that I want to play, but I think there's no way that we have this 2 back-to-back years where 2025, because 2024 was pretty light. 2024 I played like probably 30 or so backlog games. 2025 it feels impossible right now for me to really dive into the backlog. 2026 I think it's going to be similar, although I might finish Grand Theft Auto. I can't wait for GTA 6, and I'm going to play the ever-loving shit out of that game. But I'm also not really sure what that means. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure what playing the ever-loving shit out of a Grand Theft Auto game means to people in 2025, opposed to like what it meant to people in 2010, 2012, or whatever, 2013, when GTA 5 came out before the online. Because now with the online, it's a way for people to play Grand Theft Auto forever. And that's not how I play these games at all. I'll probably put 70, 100 hours into Grand Theft Auto 6, but, that's a couple months. And if it's going to be a situation where there's no releases until, say there's no games coming out in April, June, July, then okay, maybe I finish Grand Theft Auto 6 in a couple months and then I jump into the backlog as these publishers are waiting to, get to around August territory before they begin releasing their games again. But yeah, I obviously can't wait for Grand Theft Auto 6. I'm not knocking it whatsoever. It is definitely, I'm well aware it's the most anticipated video game of all time. It's going to be the most successful video game of all time. It's going to break all the records, have I'm aware of all that. But like, I don't have any plans of playing it for 300 hours unless for some weird ass reason the main story and the side content run 300 hours. I know this is a weird one, but I have never finished Resident Evil 5 either. So kind of add that to the list as well. Resident Evil 5, I have to at some point go through and finish this damn game. It's the only mainline Resident Evil game that I have never completed, that I have never finished. And that I've tried multiple times to jump back in and to finish this thing. I do not like Resident Evil 5, but I need to finish that before Requiem. That way I can at least have a complete kind of picture of all the mainline games. And I've obviously went back and I've watched the story cutscenes for RE5, so I have the context of, what takes place. That is a big game in terms of the lore and kind of future implications of like what context is given for future games into RE6. Like there's big key moments that take place in RE5 and I'm aware of those, but I've got like 60-70% of the way through it and just been like, I don't like playing this damn thing. But how about we go ahead and hop into what I have been playing, and we'll kick it off with some Hades 2, and this footage should look better than the last time I captured footage for the Switch 2, and it was all compressed, and then anywho, this time I downloaded it straight from the Switch 2 with their app, and then uploaded the 30-second clips, and instead of splicing them together and running them through the editing software, I just kind of uploaded them directly, so hopefully it'll make the footage look better. But Hades 2, dude, I could go. I really hate how Nintendo works with that whole. It has nothing to do with the game. Hades 2 is fucking awesome, but it is so annoying getting just. I should just run a capture card to it, and that would probably make it a whole lot simpler. But I don't know. It's crazy how easy it is on Xbox and PlayStation. You just capture your footage, upload it directly. It can be an hour long if you want it to be, and none of that shit matters. But anywho, Hades 2 is a excellent video game. I probably put about another 5-6 hours into it this week, maybe even a little bit more than that, and I feel like I am getting nowhere. This game keeps kicking my fucking ass, man. I think I'm at the 4th world now, if I'm not mistaken, 4th or 5th world now. I don't want to spoil anything. I'll say this. Where I left off at, I had just faced a boss, and it was the first boss who had multiple phases. I'll just say that. Keep it very vague. And yeah, that boss kicked my fucking ass. And so I really enjoy the game. I feel like it is much harder than the first Hades. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong on that. I do not remember because I think I've probably put about as much time into Hades 2 right now as I put into Hades 1 in general to get one run completed in the first Hades. Like, I think it only took me maybe a little bit longer, maybe 15-20 hours to finish one run in the first Hades, but I don't even feel like it was that long. And I think I've put close to that same amount of time into Hades 2, and I do not think I'm even halfway finished with this game. Like, just from what's taking place narratively, like, it doesn't even feel like they're really building to anything all that big yet. So I don't know. I don't think I will be able to finish this before the end of the year, unfortunately, because I guess we can go ahead and transition right over to the next game that we're going to talk about that has pretty much dominated my... I love you, Hades 2, but Ghost of Yotei came out and completely took over my life. It dropped, 2 days ago, and it is completely taken over my attention, my focus. All of my free time will be going to Ghost of Yotei until I finish that game. I am completely fucking addicted to this video game. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit scared going into this. I was a little bit nervous that this wasn't going to click with me in the same way that the first game did, because Tsushima, just for a little bit of background, Ghost of Tsushima was my favorite game of 2020. I think by a pretty wide margin. I like The Last of Us 2 a lot, but I'm trying to think of what else came out in 2020 that would have even competed with Tsushima. But I'm pretty sure, I'm almost positive that Tsushima was my favorite game of 2020. And it just, it was fresh at the time. You know, people were clamoring for Assassin's Creed in Japan, and at that time, it had never happened. And then Tsushima comes out at the perfect time. There's really not a lot of these open world samurai style games running around in Japan. Like that wasn't. Now there's so many, and that was the thing I was kind of worried about going in to Yotei. Is like, am I going to be burned out by this? You know what I mean? Like, it's been a lot, and with Assassin's Creed Shadows, I got completely burned out by that. I put about 20 hours into Shadows, and there was just nothing at all narratively that was compelling me to stay in that game. Like, I think Shadows is a well-made, like, from a mechanical standpoint, Assassin's Creed Shadows is a totally fine video game. But the narrative hooks just weren't really there in the same way they are with Yotei. So far, I you know, who knows? Maybe I fall off of it as well, because for a while I was really enjoying Shadows. I think probably until around hour 10, 12, somewhere in that range, I was digging Shadows quite a lot. But I'm getting close to that range with Yotei, and I have not fallen off at all. And the structure narratively is just so much, it's paced so much better than Shadows. You just constantly care about what is going on in the story. And I'll say there as well, you know, that's kind of a surprise for me, just how invested I am in the story, because that's one of the weaker elements of Tsushima overall. Is like, the story's good, but I wouldn't say great. And so far, I think they're on track to tell a great story with Yotei. Once again, only 8 or so hours in, 7-8 hours into this game, so it could fall apart. I'll let you know next week. I think probably by next week, I don't know, 2 hours a day, 7 days, 14 hours. I probably won't have it finished by next week, but I don't know. Like I said, if last night is anything to go by, I was up until like 2 a.m. playing this damn game. It is very, very hard for me to put down. It's one of those games that you go to sleep late for, you wake up early for, just to get a couple extra hours with it. And just that shit right there of like walking the enemy down. I'm sorry to jump off topic for the listeners, but for any of the viewers, is like, you kill a couple enemies, and then after you kill a couple enemies, they start freaking out. The remaining enemy begins freaking out and like walks backwards, and you just walk slowly towards them and just fucking decimate them with a damn sword through the throat. It's just, yeah. And even this element here of like, I just kind of wandered off and found this side quest naturally. I was on the way to do a main quest, and I stumble upon this side quest. Just, I see it off in the distance. I'm like, well, let's see what's going on over here. And then it turns into something that is actually compelling. And once again, that's another weak spot for Tsushima that has been cleaned up a lot with Yotei, where in Tsushima, I didn't really care about the majority of the side content on offer. I found most of it to be fairly bland, fairly forgettable. And so it's the thing with video games in general, where I will do a couple of, like, I try to spread the field. I'll do a wide range, a wide variety of the different side content that you're offering up to see what I like, and then I'll try to return to do more of what I like. And it's most games for me, I feel like I rarely find anything of value in side content. It feels like more often than not, you buy a game and there's, you know, typically a pretty solid main story, and I should say something of value like that's substantive on a narrative level with the side content. I think more often than not, side content is there because it's a great buzzword. It's a great kind of back of the box, 100+ hour long, adventure, 100+ hour long epic adventure that you're going to go on. And in reality, you typically have about 20 really strong hours. And then you have 80 hours of filler. And it's like, that's not compelling to me whatsoever. But almost every single time in Yotei so far that I have stumbled upon, just some random villager who is being held captive or whatever the case may be, it leads me along to, like, just even if it's a morsel of, narrative content that is at least slightly compelling. Oh, they're stealing our horses. Can you help me go get our horses back? And then you learn something about the enemy faction that's stealing the horses. You learn something about the guy who is the horse keeper, and just like little small things, even to the point of kind of environmental storytelling, where there was this instance of I saw this mountain off in the distance. And I was like, I think there's probably going to be a shrine up there. They typically put shrines for you to upgrade your character at the top of the mountain. So I was like, okay, well, cool. I'm going to go climb this mountain and get this upgrade point to upgrade Atsu. And so I start climbing this mountain, and I see as I'm climbing up it, it's like a steep mountain. And as I'm like halfway up it, I see this dead body. And you notice that then I think Atsu even utters like, oh, his rope, it looks like his rope broke. Or, it looks like his rope snapped on this climb. And you see him just kind of laid out there. And there's just that level of like, okay, yeah, this, I was thinking that this was quite the climb. You're starting to feel that way as you're halfway up the mountain. You're like, damn, this is a pretty steep climb. And then you see something like that to reaffirm, like, oh, yeah. Right. No, this is a pretty fucking steep climb. And it just kind of, it adds that little bit of environmental storytelling, that little bit of immersion to enhance that feeling of, yeah, we're really on a trek here. We're really trying to get up this damn mountain, and it's pushing back. It's biting back a little bit. And so everything about this so far has I'm thoroughly impressed. And I should have known that would have been the case. You know what I mean? I should have known that. I like every single Sucker Punch game I have ever played. I like all the Sly Coopers. I like all the Infamous games. Infamous 2, I think, is genuinely probably one of my favorite games ever. Like I look at that as like a 9.5 out of 10 style video game. I fucking love that game. And I think it's one of the best stories that they've ever told as well. And it's interesting that they do the thing here where they allow you to make choices that typically don't really matter. But once again, there was a moment when I was off just roaming around, and I found, I don't want to spoil too much, but I'll just say if you find a scenario that leads you on a quest about an imposter, and I'll just kind of leave it there. But a decision takes shape towards the end of that quest where I actually can make a significant decision here. And sure, it's not a decision that's going to have these wide sweeping effects on the end game. Like, it's not going to change Atsu's overall experience in the main story whatsoever. The main story is the main story. That's what all these PlayStation first party games are. You know what I mean? They have a very handcrafted, curated experience that they're guiding you down. And, I saw that IGN article, and I didn't read through it, and then that's on me. I should have read through the entire thing before even jumping to a conclusion here or even commenting on it. But I saw the IGN article that was talking about, the headline said, I'm tired of the sameness revenge story in PlayStation games. And when I first saw that, I was like, that's, for one, it's just an interesting opinion piece in general. Like, that's something I would want to click on. So shout out there. I don't necessarily agree with that idea at all. When I look at the breadth of variety on offer, I think of something like Horizon that's very different than something like The Last of Us, that's very different than, like, they're not trying to tell the same stories at all. But at the same time, I think that tonally is one of the areas I could somewhat agree with this notion of sameness. And it's not like, you see people want to lump every third person action adventure game into the same, like, yeah, it's a third person action adventure game. Like, there've always been third person action adventure games forever. That's probably one of the main styles of video game that release. You know what I mean? It's, you can do so much within that. A third person action adventure game is a Returnal, is a Death Stranding, is a, you get what I'm saying? There's so many different varieties of third person action adventure game. I don't think that's the problem whatsoever with the PlayStation first party output. I would say more so, if there is a problem, I think that there's a lack of fun. And I don't, it's not a lack of fun in the gameplay. The gameplay for all of these games are, in my opinion, just beyond excellent. They're beyond fun to play. But it's a lack of, like, the worlds aren't really fun. When you look at, like, a Grand Theft Auto, you think of, like, a fun world that you're going to go and dick around in. When you look at even something like a Far Cry, or there's a lot of game worlds that you look at as more cheerful. Even something like a Final Fantasy VII, which I know has harsher kind of, it has undertones that are much more mature, much more subtle, that if you really want to pick apart that story a little bit more with Shinra and then some of the environmental implications there, like, there's stuff in there that's darker. But I think that that's one of the key elements that PlayStation is missing. Like, I don't want them to abandon this style of game ever, really. I think that this style of game that they make, it's what got me in the door. And people would kind of get upset every now and then with me whenever I would be real harsh on PlayStation about the live service push. Because you got to keep in mind, I was probably one of the first people to really, like, start that criticism. Because to me, that's never what got me back into video games. Was this style of game, the Ghost of Tsushima's, The Last of Us, this style of game. Like, this is what keeps me so engaged with the hobby. I love this specific style of video game. You know what I mean? So when PlayStation was wanting to pivot and focus a lot of their resources on live service games, I was like, holy shit. And I hate this. Like, out the gate, like, I don't want to see how it pans out. I don't have to see how it pans out. There's nothing about this that will be for me. Like, that was a major bummer to me. So I was really early on that hate train before it was, with the Concords, and before it was with the marathons and the fair games. Like, I want shit like Yotei. And then this comes out and reaffirms that this is exactly the style of thing that I am looking for. But at the same time, it's like, there is definitely a tonal, a tonal kind of reworking, or a tonal shakeup that I think I would appreciate at the same time. Because all of these stories are so self-serious and there's a little bit of humor flirted with all these games. You know what I mean? All of these games have little moments where you're going to get a little chuckle. But, like, I think that's the area. If PlayStation is going to, like, I want them to keep this same exact style of game. Like, I would be so down, and maybe we can even talk about that. You know what? Yeah, let's save that. Let's save that for a topic after we finish talking about Yotei. We'll kind of build out, like, what I would like to see from Sucker Punch after Ghost of Yotei. But yeah, just kind of talking a little bit more about the actual game. And then, like you see right here, just jaw-droppingly beautiful. That title screen is, goodness gracious. But it's, to me, I think that something I also forgot before jumping back in was, like, I just forgot how much I like to play Tsushima, and then how good it feels to play a game like this, and how great the combat feels. This blending of something like a Assassin's Creed with Arkham influence in there, that the Arkham influence might even overweigh the Assassin's Creediness of it, just that flow state that you get into, especially when like that first unlock that you get where you perfect parry and the time slows down a little bit, and then you just lunge forward and drive that sword through someone's throat, and that shit just feels incredible. And adding in the new weapons here of having the dual katanas, where it's like, this is something that I kind of just stumbled. I know it's a main story thing, but I just kind of stumbled upon it as I was roaming through the world, where you go in and it's like you get all of these mini games that are being thrown at you. Your bamboo mini games, and they're throwing fucking, I forget what they're throwing in the air, and you're having to time the dual katanas to chop these things into pieces, and you can't miss. And it's like this entire quest line, it makes you feel like you're actually earning this new weapon, and it's not a thing of, it's not punishing or anything like that. None of these games are that. They're all just designed around being enjoyable, designed around being fun. But it's I think the combat is incredible. You know what I mean? It's nothing that is groundbreaking. It's nothing that is revolutionary whatsoever, but I just like pressing damn square for a quick attack, pressing triangle for a strong attack, and then like that's always the swapping to the the shoulder buttons for your attacks. That never resonated with me. I was like, that's not my damn punch button, or that's not my damn strike button. My strike button is square. And it's, once again, that's all opinion based horse shit. I really think though, when Arkham Asylum kind of came out, that became such a standard for so long that I just got used to that, and I still haven't got used to where games are like transitioning over to R1 for your quick attack, R2 for your lunging, more powerful attack. I still haven't got used to that. So just jumping into Yotei, it's like, oh yeah, this is how action adventure games are supposed to play in my mind. But it's just you don't really get games like this often, and it felt like in the PlayStation 4 generation, and definitely towards the end of the PlayStation 3 generation, we got games like this pretty frequently. And no disrespect to something like a Death Stranding 2, but when Yotei comes out and you start playing this and you're like, oh, right. Yeah, this is PlayStation Studios when they are like really cooking with a blockbuster at 11. And something that I'm really liking this time around as well with Yotei a little bit more than Tsushima. And listen, it's been a while since I've replayed Tsushima. Actually, I don't think I ever replayed Tsushima. I played it in 2020. I don't think I've played it since 2020. So that's one as well. I would definitely like to go back and replay Tsushima. And this is making me want to replay it even more. But it's something that I'm really appreciating so far in Yotei is the of course it's a open world, and you're gonna have all of your traditional go free the prisoner, go take out this bandit camp, like you're gonna have all of those traditional aspects in there, as you like. That's what people want from open world games. You should have that in there. But at the same time, I feel that this Yotei in particular, like when compared to Tsushima, it feels like there's a lot more intentionality in some of the more like handcrafted level design, and like there's actual interiors, and there's actual small dungeons that you're traversing through, and I've seen probably like 4 or 5 of these kind of small, what would feel like linear action game levels that have already been introduced in Yotei in the whatever 8 or so hours that I've been playing. And I don't remember that feeling often at all in Tsushima. But at the same time, it's you get the things that you want from the open world as well. Like you're gonna go and the bird's gonna be flying, and you're gonna go and chase the bird. The bird's gonna lead you to a shrine. The bird's gonna lead you to, somewhere where you can cut down some damn bamboo and then gain a new spirit point. Like all of that shit's available as well. But one of my favorite new elements, new features in Yotei is their new bounty system, where you go and kind of like a Witcher-esque situation. The bounty boards are available in the towns. You go and you pick up the bounties, and then there's a little clue of where this character might be located, where this enemy might be located, and then you go and you track them down. But you track them down based solely upon like this little bit of information, and it's the thing where I think it's such a smart design choice to have something like this bounty system that is actually rewarding. It has narrative hooks in there that are interesting, and it's just fun as shit to go and kind of play this bounty hunter investigator style role in this setting. But at the same time, it's not main story. It's not like forcing you to do this. It's not, you don't have to do these bounties to complete the game. And so it's giving you like a totally non-linear, non-guided approach to finding these different bounties who are out there in the world. But it's not like the main path, the main story is very, very straightforward. You have your wind navigation still telling you exactly where to go to get from point A to point B to progress the main story through. But if you want something that is more akin to like an Atomfall, where, in Atomfall you have your map and the coordinates are on your map and you're having to pin a specific location manually on that map to figure out where you would like to go and where you think the enemy, the suspect, might be located. And it's the same thing in Yotei. And even here, like, you see the being able to forge the weapons, and you're, I think earlier there was a little section where she's playing the guitar, and like, dude, one of my favorite fucking mini games, the little paper football, I forget what they call it, but you're flicking the coins and you go into the different, the different little rest points or the different little cabins, and at these inns you're finding people who are gambling, and you can join in and gamble and flick the coin and maybe gamble for $500. And then there's so much in here that is like, nothing feels so far, because I that's another thing about Assassin's Creed Shadows, because there's a lot of similarities, and I hate to do the over comparing and completely kind of looking away from what makes Yotei special and what makes Assassin's Creed special, Shadows special on their own. But there's a lot of obvious comparisons here, so forgive me. But the thing of like the Yotei 6 in this sort of Kill Bill style revenge storyline being very similar to Assassin's Creed Shadows, and that revenge storyline exactly in the way that it's structured of okay, well, here are the enemies that you're going after. And in Shadows it felt a lot more messy in the actual layout of how you're going to tackle that. It felt a lot more like, okay, go here, go anywhere. None of it's really going to have any connective tissue. Narratively, it just seemed like a mess, in my opinion. And here it's like, yeah, there's a little bit of freedom, but it's pretty fucking straightforward. And you definitely do have to do a lot of these story beats in a very, very specific order. It's not just willy-nilly go kill all 6 of these dudes however, whenever, wherever you want to. Like, it is still that PlayStation first party DNA, which, different strokes for different folks. Some people are really not going to vibe with that whatsoever. They're not going to vibe with the idea of here's an open world game that's restricting me in any way, shape, or form. But for me personally, I like that a lot. I want a really good story to be at the forefront of your design. Whenever you're, shaping this game to be what you want it to be, I want one of your main focuses to be on the story. Like for games that I personally really, really flock to, story is such a key component of what sinks its teeth in and makes me personally appreciate it so much. So yeah, I just want to be real clear on that. Is like, it doesn't feel sloppy at all. It doesn't feel like the narrative hooks are strong, and they're strong out the fucking gate, which I don't think Tsushima had a bad story whatsoever. But I do think that the Assassin's Creed kind of that vein of storytelling, that ilk of storytelling, it was beyond that. Production values were much stronger than something like an Assassin's Creed for Ghost of Tsushima. It was a better overall story than the majority of your Assassin's Creed games and Ubisoft style open world games. But I could understand people drawing that comparison where it's like, yeah, it's just kind of like an Assassin's Creed game. This does feel like it's taking the story and expanding upon it and trying to really focus on that as like a core pillar of Yotei, opposed to Tsushima, where it oftentimes didn't feel like the main focus of the game. But visually, I guess that's sort of the final point, and then we can talk about the future of Sucker Punch, because I'd definitely like to hear y'all's thoughts in the comments about that. But visually, this thing, I mean, as you're seeing, it's stunning, and Tsushima was absolutely fucking stunning as well. I don't think you're going to jump into Ghost of Yotei and feel this immediate visual, like it doesn't look, it doesn't feel like a 10 times better looking game than Tsushima. You're not going to be totally blown away by the improvements that were made, but you're going to notice. And the key thing you're probably going to notice out the gate is the draw distance. Like, when you're just roaming around this world, you can see dozens and dozens and dozens of miles ahead of you. And what you see off in the distance, you actually can go and you can reach those locations naturally by just taking your horse wherever you see. And that is really fucking impressive. That is kind of the next gen feature, I would say, so far in this game, that has kind of left me like jaw-dropping sort of improvement. But other than that, like, character modeling definitely improved. But it's not Naughty Dog. You know what I mean? It can't be. It's this big open world thing. It's not. I shouldn't say it can't be, because I guess something like Red Dead Redemption 2 would prove otherwise. But it's not that. They talked about that they had a $60 million budget. This is such great use of fucking $60 million. Like, this is insane that they kept this thing at a $60 million budget, as you're seeing like the foliage and the leaves bounce around so dynamically, so naturally. And once again, some of that stuff was in Tsushima, but these are the little things that you're definitely going to gain some appreciation for the more you play it. And I don't even think I've began to really scratch the surface of just the level of like small details. Like, there's certain things that I've seen so far that have been like, oh, that's okay, wow, that's very, very impressive. Where I remember there was one point where I was like roaming around and it had just rained, and like my horses, I'm running around, or I'm on horseback, and the horse is just kicking up mud, and just nonstop kicking up mud. And I'm like, oh, I'm not really thinking anything of it. But then after that, I return back to the same place, and it's no longer raining, and then the sun's out, and it looks like maybe it's been dry for a little bit. And I'm roaming around with my horse again, and the mud's not flying everywhere. I'm like, oh shit, okay, so this is like some sort of dynamic. The weather is, I assume, on some sort of dynamic system where it can rain at any time, it can get hot at any time. And is it a situation where, because I've seen certain, and I don't know this, you can correct me in the comments one way or the other, but I've seen scenarios where I've been out and it's been just like straight up fucking blizzard and snow up to my damn shoulders, and then I see a lake that is completely frozen over. Is there going to be a point where that lake that I can run my horse across Like, I can ride my horse across that lake. Is there going to be a point where that is no longer the case, and the lake, as the ice melts, the lake resumes its natural form? Like, shit like that is very fucking impressive. That, once again, small details of the cutting of the bamboo and the natural kind of splitting of the trees as you're cutting through them, splitting of the branches as you're cutting them. These sort of, it's crazy to say that, because that is one of the features, the like advanced tech features that Assassin's Creed Shadows was touting as well. But it's similar here. It's a similar thing, and it is equally fucking impressive. It's a bummer that you can't really talk about one game without talking about the other in a lot of instances, because they are kind of doing a lot of the same shit. But for my personal preference, I just think Yotei is doing kind of everything better. So, hey, I do not think Shadows is a bad game at all. But from a storytelling front, this for me just it's clicking. It is clicking. It is firing on all cylinders right now. Loving the gameplay, loving the story, and yeah, I will jump back in next week when we come back for the Ramble Report, and I will give you my final thoughts on Ghost of Yotei. But right now, yeah, we're talking about it's in that range. It's in that range of like it could be crowned at the end of the year my game of the year, without a doubt. It's in that company. But I guess, kind of continuing straight off that game of the year talk, not talking about my personal games of the year here, but I need to do my final game of the year nominee prediction thing, and I might as well do it here. We got so on the board right here, I have the 6 games that I predicted when I last did this. I have Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. This is in no order whatsoever. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Expedition 33, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hollow Knight Silk Song, Split Fiction, and Metro Prime. That's what I predicted would be nominated, the final 6 games that would be nominated for Keeley's Game of the Year, celebration award show, whatever you want to call it, in December. But you got to remember the cutoff is mid-November, and so this was the list that I had. Problem being, Metroid Prime is not going to release in time, so we have an open slot to fill for that 6th position, and I think, like, without a doubt, it comes down to 3 games. One, of course, being Death Stranding 2. That's obviously the jokes they write themselves with Kojima and Keeley's friendship, and the likelihood that somehow, some way, Death Stranding 2, finds itself in the final 6. And I don't even think that's too crazy. Like, it is, without a doubt, one of the highest reviewed games of 2025. People love Death Stranding 2. And even from what I played of it, I would say, yeah, I think that could be deserving of a Game of the Year nom. You know what I mean? Like that, it's a much, much improved sequel from the little bit of it I played, the 6 hours that I played of Death Stranding 2. So I think that is certainly, without a doubt, one of the possibilities. I think the other one is easily Hades 2. It is certainly in that conversation right now. If we're looking at Metacritic alone, Hades 2 is the top rated game of 2025 with a 94 Metacritic score. And it's surpassing player counts that Hades 1 hits. So the popularity, it seems like it's much more popular than Hades 1. It's not even out on PlayStation and Xbox yet. That's going to happen in, I believe, November, or maybe it's actually late October for Hades 2 to launch on PlayStation and Xbox. So as soon as it's available on PlayStation and Xbox, the conversation kind of restarts again, which is right there, perfect in time for this season, the Game Awards season, when the voting begins. I think the voting begins in early-ish November, so if it does launch on PlayStation and Xbox late October, then it's perfect timing for the award season to be back in the conversation, to have people on PC, on Switch 2, PlayStation and Xbox all playing it at that perfect time of the year. So I do think this is easily a high likelihood to fill that sixth spot. And then, of course, Ghost of Yotei, which we just talked about. Absolutely fucking incredible video game. When you think about the two PlayStation related titles on this list, I know Death Stranding 2 isn't necessarily first party, but regardless, the two big PlayStation exclusives on this list of potential nominees, I think it would probably still go to Death Stranding 2. I think Yotei is the much better game personally, but that's just me on a personal level. Like when you look at the scoring differences here, you have Death Stranding 2 at an 89 on Metacritic, and then you have Ghost of Yotei at a 86. So a 3-point drop. That's not necessarily the end all be all, but you're kind of in that range with like your Silent Hill Fs and your Citizen Sleeper 2s at that point. And I don't really think at that point you're talking about, I don't think you're talking quite game of the year level. Once again, for me personally, that might be a lot different when we get to that point. I think Ghost of Yotei is fucking excellent, but for the overall voting, I'm thinking you're probably going to keep that stuff in the 9. So let's say Yotei out, then we end up with either Hades 2 or, Death Stranding 2 to fill that 6th spot. If I had to put money on it right now, I would say it's probably going to be Hades 2 that takes that, unless there's some surprise indie drop, because there's always some surprise indie drop. But I think, and that's kind of the crazy thing, is you're talking about 3 indies right here with, well, you could maybe even make the consideration for 4. Expedition 33, Split Fiction, Hades 2, and Silksong. I think that Expedition 33 and Split Fiction are in there kind of comfortably in the, and I would even say Expedition 33 is bordering on some level of AAA. But yeah, when you're talking budget, probably not. They're probably both in the AA space, Split Fiction and Expedition 33. So I think that's probably your final 6 right there. I could actually see Split Fiction even being cut, and Death Stranding 2 being slotted in for Split Fiction. That would seem crazy to me, but I could see it. I think that actually might be likely now that I'm thinking about it. I think these, it's such a tough year. Like, I could see this going a number of different ways, man. Like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I could see being cut. Split Fiction, I could see being cut. Hades 2, I could see being cut. But I think I'm going to lock in this list. I personally feel that Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has to be on there. Just flawless execution of storytelling and flawless execution of making a big budget Bethesda styled game for what, $30 million, $40 million. Just mind blowing what they were able to accomplish. I think that should be awarded. But I could see it maybe not being awarded. Let me know in the comments, what are your kind of final game of the year, your big 6 nominees? What are you locking in? I think these are my 6 that I'm sticking with. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Expedition 33, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hollow Knight Silksong, Split Fiction, and Hades 2. But I'm not really comfortable with that Split Fiction pick. I think that might be a little bit of my heart speaking there. But yeah, kind of, just back to that idea that we were talking about beforehand of Sucker Punch. They do games in 3s often, with Sly Cooper 4 not being Sucker Punch developed. And so you had the Sly series that was a trilogy from Sucker Punch, Infamous series that was a trilogy from Sucker Punch. So I think probably the most reasonable or logical thing to assume is that the next game from Sucker Punch will be something in the Ghost of universe. I remember reading about this, what is it, the Mu, the lost continent that is supposedly like this underwater, like tsunamis wiped away what is believed to be this continent in Japan. I could be wrong about a lot of these details here, but I remember reading about that, and I was like, Damn, that would be a sick ass Ghost of game, like this underwater mythical sort of continent. And I listen, I know that Sucker Punch is much more like respectful. They everything that they've done with Japanese history and these different locations in Japan, they've all been realistic. It's exaggerated realism for sure. Like it's not. I mean, not to spoil anything, but obviously some of this shit is it borders on territory that is obviously not realistic at all in certain parts of the story. So it's not like they are. It's not like they're trying to stay 100% true to realism, but they're also not delving too much into mythology whatsoever, or not delving into made up or potentially made up lost continent what if style scenarios and shit like that. But I'm trying to think of like what else. There's tons of different shit, different eras you can go to and stay in Japan, but I think that we're seeing so many of these style of games now, and once again back to that point of in 2020 when Tsushima came out, we really weren't seeing tons of Wolong Fallen Dynasties and tons of even not even just games in Japan, but games of guy or gal runs around with a big sword and hacks shit to death. Like when you see stuff like a Phantom Blade Zero, or when you see stuff like a Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, or a games that you have Neo 3 that's right around the corner. You have these games that are constantly dropping nonstop that have a similar aesthetic, a similar sort of guy runs around in open world with sword hacking shit. Or even if it's not open world, like a more linear kind of Black Myth Wukong, or there's a lot of just this style of guy or gal running around in a world hacking something with a sword. So it's like, do you just stay with that? And once again, it's like, well, sales will dictate rather they stay with the ghost of. I don't think they're just obligated to making a trilogy of these games. You know what I mean? Like, I think that they can kind of go and do as they please. I would hope that they have earned the right to, if they feel it's time to abandon the IP, I would hope they feel it's there. I would hope Sony grants them that privilege, because I definitely think that they have earned it at this point. But let's kind of build this out a little bit. So I got the Microsoft Word pulled back up, and so I wrote down future of Sucker Punch, and we'll list off like some of the possibilities, and then I'll finalize one. I'll try to pick one from the list of like what I would want to see Sucker Punch do the most for their next game. So we got Mu, the Lost Continent. I think that playing through Yotei and seeing that bounty system laid out, once again, I have no idea what to call it. So we'll just type in Bounty Hunter full game, where I think that system, their bounty system in Yotei, if they expanded that and tried to make that into like a fully fleshed out game, I really think that could work. And I think we could see some super fucking interesting shit in them attempting that, because like, I don't know where do you set it, what era, because you don't really want to say, okay, well, like modern times would be perfect, of course, but at the same time, you're talking about, okay, well now you're leaving behind swords and melee and all that, and you're dealing more with guns. So, which they do have firearms in Yotei as well, but it's not like the main core mechanic in combat. So they're going to have to leave that behind in order to develop firearms, which, don't get me wrong, the technology on offer would be so sick if you did a modern bounty hunter style game where if it's the exact same system in Yotei where nothing is told to you whatsoever and you're just having to track them down based on clues, like that would just be so damn sick. And a system where, say it's something to the effect of, okay, you're this bounty hunter and you know the guy's name, you know his address, he's not at his address, but you know his place of work. So you have like a fully functional map and all that you would expect. But it's more like the process of navigating and finding clues. It's less about, oh, I'm going to go and examine the ground to see if there's footprints here, or, oh, I'm going to go look through this shelf to find a book. It's like less about that and more about, I'm going to go to your workplace. I'm going to go to where you play poker on a Friday night, break in that bitch, and I'm going to interrogate the people closest to you and try to get information that way to hunt you down. And then you have the map where it's, because they do a lot of shit with the touchpad for the PS5 in Ghost of Yotei, which can be kind of annoying and gimmicky at times, but it would be sort of sick to like use that touchpad to place your own sort of clues or something. Or maybe there's like it would probably be more functional if you can just press the touchpad and then maybe you motion like a square at a certain point, and if you motion the square on the touchpad, like a text box pops up, and then you get to type in certain text, like actual custom text that stays on the map until you go and remove it. So like, say you go in and you interrogate this dude and he tells you this specific thing, you'll put this text on where you found him at, or where his home location is at, so you'll kind of remember what he told you, where he's at, and then you'll go and you'll add another text box for where he told you the bounty is at, where he told you the suspect is hiding at, and then you place that specific custom map marker there for where the suspect might be hiding. But you don't remove the other one just in case he fed you bad information. That way you can go and track him back down and deal with the problem as you see fit. But I think that their whole bounty hunter style thing that they have in Yotei is like, it's really, really fucking addictive. It's just addictive to see this on the map of like, yeah, they're somewhere around this area. And then you go to that area and you encounter somebody else, another group of bounty hunters that are trying to track him down, or you encounter some friends, family, relatives, whatever the case may be. And it's going to pose so many moral dilemmas. Like, I've already encountered one of those in Yotei where it's like, yeah, I don't really think you're guilty of anything. You're explaining your story. You're telling me your backstory. And I don't feel like I need to kill you or bring you in or anything to that effect at all. And so I just think there's so many interesting moral dilemmas with that bounty hunter sort of role. But I guess the thing is, where do you set a bounty hunter game? Like, what era do you set a bounty hunter game in? And because modern times, it's going to be far too difficult to do that in modern times. Like, they would really have to full blown go in and from the ground up kind of recreate, like, everything that they do right now is not based around, once again, firearms, machine gun, shotgun. Like, it's not based around modern weaponry whatsoever. So how do you circumvent that? And I guess like something that could be done that would be really fucking cool, in my opinion, is like a Western game. And I know that's so intimidating to a lot of developers to go in and make a Western game, because you're automatically going to be compared to Red Dead Redemption 2. But it's like, they don't own the genre, the Western genre. You can create other Western games, and we get so few Western video games. But setting something in like the early to mid 1800s, something like that, where you're dealing with very limited weaponry, very limited guns in terms of you definitely have your as you progress through the 1800s, you're dealing with machine guns and shit like that, but that's not the most common thing that you're going to find out in the wild. You're typically dealing with your six shooters and stuff of that ilk, which wouldn't be, I would imagine, wouldn't be much different than a lot of the stuff you're dealing with in Yotei in terms of firearms and weaponry. So maybe do you tackle like a Western bounty hunter style game? And probably the more difficult feature mechanic in general for a modern game would be the vehicles, which you go earlier in the 1800s, you really don't have to deal with much of that at all. You're still primarily talking about horses being your main form of transportation, and you get into trains and shit like that. But it's still very, very, very different than, like, even if you go early 1900s, you're talking about having to create cars and so I don't know. Like, I think a Western bounty hunter style game would be sick as shit for Sucker Punch's like next new IP to branch out into. But if you could just say, I don't know. I was gonna say, if you could like point it any direction and allow me to fantasy book this to go anywhere, I do lean towards Infamous. A new Infamous game, Jesus Christ, great spelling. A new Infamous game, that would be probably what I would want to see most from Sucker Punch next, just because I think Infamous 2 is like beyond God tier, man. But like, I just think those ideas that were introduced in Infamous 2, where, you know, you're talking about the choice and consequence and having some of those story beats there where you actually were kind of compelled by the bad side. Like later in the game, the character that you viewed as the edgy kind of evil lady, she started making really good points, and the character that you viewed as like the good, wholesome, like the blue side of the, you know, good and evil, she kind of say, oh, damn, you're saying some shit that I find repulsive, I find kind of vile. And that's the stuff that in Infamous 2, that's what really hooked me in. And I was, oh wow, this, because Infamous 1 had those choices you could make. Of course, you could, you know, you want to go good and you're going to get good powers. You want to go evil, you're going to get evil powers, and you're going to see your choices reflected in that regard. But when I think about what could be done new in this, is like, I would like to see almost a totally different game where maybe you made 2 7-hour style games where if you do end up going down a darker road, you actually see the city start to reflect that, and just like the way that your character views the world. Like maybe I don't exactly know the technical terms for all this shit, but like you start seeing the world with like a darker hue to it, like more reds and blacks kind of in your field of vision, and just actual art directional differences opposed to just character and customization and you know, kind of your powers. Those were the key differences for the Infamous games initially. But I would like actually seeing the city be reflecting your, if you do lean darker, seeing the city take on like a darker shape, because that's one of the problems as well, where developers like BioWare developers have talked about it, where they put all this effort into, you know, creating choice and consequence and creating a evil or a, you know, a Paragon and Renegade system, but everybody typically goes the good guy route. And so when they develop the possibility or the options for you to be an evil character, it's like, well, if only, you know, 7% of our user base even decides to do that, then why are we consistently putting money, putting resources behind it. But I think if you were to create, because when you're talking about a 30 game, like going back and replaying through an entire 30-hour game, but if you're talking about a 10-hour game, 12-hour game, and you know that the good path is drastically different from the evil path, I'd be interested in that. And then, with the whole SSD thing, where could you do a scenario where you're talking about like having some sort of time travel where like Delson and Cole can you do something like that where there's some sort of time travel? You're traveling back to, well, I guess you can't really travel back to, I mean, hell, you're going back to Raccoon City in Resident Evil 9, so I guess you can kind of go wherever the fuck you want, but could it be a scenario where you're going back to Louisiana and then, what was it, like Seattle was Infamous Second Son, and then what was the first game? Was the first game based on like New York or Chicago? But anywho, like, could it be some scenario where you're having like little flashbacks or time travel in between these, or maybe that's how you find out that you are a superhuman just in general, is that you're experiencing some what feels like these very vivid real dreams where you end up in these different areas where you're like, why the fuck am I here? And you're having these visions from Seattle, from New York, Chicago, whatever, from Louisiana. And could there be some sort of the multiverse is all the rage nowadays? But that's maybe the scenario right there why you don't go Infamous, is that the superhero trend seems to be dying out rapidly. So they were kind of like too early to the superhero market to begin with. I don't know. Actually, they were, it was somewhat perfect timing that just didn't seem to quite, like, I think Infamous sold well, but I don't think it sold gangbusters, because I mean, those games came out, Infamous 1, 2009, I believe, and then Infamous 2, 2011. So, and then Second Son was 2015, and that would have been perfect time for your Avengers craze and all that. But yeah, it didn't quite take off in the way that I believe it should have. But I do think that, doubling down on the evil side of things, using some of that ratchet tech, the portal technology, whatever the hell you want to call it, for a new Infamous game. We'll just say Infamous 4 just for, whatever you want to call it something new. Probably maybe even do an origin story like the first Conduit, or however you want to lay it out. But, and then fourth, we'll leave it with these four and decide between, I mean, a Sly Cooper revival that I think a lot of people want this. I think a lot of the hardcore fans would love to see a Sly Cooper revival. I think there's very, very little chance that we ever get a Sly Cooper revival from Sucker Punch. And if I'm being real, like, I don't think we get Sly Cooper. I don't think we get Infamous. I want them to move on to something new. And then I guess we'll go ahead and I would like them to just move on to something new. So we'll cut Infamous, cut Sly Cooper, and whatever new thing that they want to work on, whatever they're passionate about, is what I want them to make. I personally don't need anything else in the Ghost of universe. I will more than happily play it. Anything else that comes out of the Ghost of wherever the hell they want to go next, I'll happily play it. I would just really like to see what they could do in a new universe with a new IP. Infamous, I don't think Infamous is the smart choice. Infamous would be my runner-up choice for personal pick. I would really, really love to see a return to Infamous. And I would be so down for a Sly Cooper revival as well. Sly Cooper 2 kind of does some of that shit that I was talking about with that Bounty Hunter game, where it's much more streamlined, but it is essentially like a little small city, and it's a heist game where you're building up these heists. And, it's Sly Cooper could come back and make a big splash. Like, I think it would sell more than people are assuming, where people are like, well, Astrobot didn't do crazy numbers. It's like, it will sell more than Astrobot. I can almost guarantee. You know what? let's mark this down. What the fuck's the date today? October 3rd? Yeah, October 3rd, 2025. Mark this down. If a Sly Cooper remastered collection comes out with Sly Cooper 1 through 4 in it and is sold for a reasonable price, $50, I think that remaster alone will sell better than Astrobot. Like, I do think Sly Cooper is a much more appealing mascot character than an Astrobot. But do I think it's going to sell Ghost of numbers? No. Do I think it's going to sell even Infamous numbers? Probably not. But I think a new IP, I think that something like taking that bounty hunter system and expanding upon that greatly, I think they could do some really fucking cool shit with that. So that would probably be my number one pick, like a full-blown Western new IP bounty hunter style game, even medieval times, like a KCD2 style game, just with that, sucker punch, that combat system. They can do what I love all their games. I'm down for whatever the fuck they make, but a bounty hunter Western style game with those mechanics from Yotei would be so sick. But let's do a quick run through of the calendar before we get out of here. And I want to talk about that EA, buyout as well before we exit the pod. I know it might be a little bit of a long one today, but hour and 20, we're doing fine. So what are y'all playing in October? I'm curious to hear what y'all are interested in checking out. I haven't gone through the calendar yet myself. I know it's a packed ass month, but let's kind of comb through it, check it out, see what is releasing. I forgot all about this. This is the skateboard game, right? The Silly Polly Beast is the name of it. This is it's like a horror skateboarding game. I might be thinking of something completely fucking different. Skim through the trailer, but yeah. It's the skateboarding horror game. I think Loon and I discovered this when we were doing we might have been doing the auction thing. I forget exactly what we were doing, but this is, I think this looks sick as fuck, and it's already out. Came out October 1st. Yeah, finally happy to announce Silly Polly Beast launches this October on PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. I haven't seen this on the PlayStation Store, and I typically check it at least once a week. I completely missed this one, but without a doubt, you can combine skateboarding and survival horror into pretty much anything, and it's going to pique my curiosity. So Silly Polly Beast. Interesting name, but I will certainly keep an eye on that. And of course, Ghost of Yotei dropping on the 2nd. And then we got the Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 bundle that is dropping on the 2nd as well. This Digimon story, and I know we're talking about games that already came out, so I'll move past this pretty quickly. But supposedly, this Digimon game is pretty damn solid. Like, it's getting great reviews. It looks fairly generic in terms of the actual, like, the combat doesn't look to be anything revolutionary at all, but from the standpoint of like right here, like the world and the exploration and stuff, like it's a great looking video game. It looks fucking incredible from just an environmental standpoint and all of that. Like visually, this thing is a looker, but shout out to, I would assume this is the best Digimon game of all time. Damn, dude, I had no idea that Bye Sweet Carol was dropping this month on October 9th, I believe it said. This is coming from the lead, I believe, creative director behind the first Remothered game. It's got that old school kind of Disney art style to it, but it's a like 2D horror game, and it's got like some of the Stalker enemy design, Metroid Dread adjacent or something to that degree. And this is one that I've had my eye on for a long time, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I got the physical edition. I pre-ordered the physical edition a long time ago because I think it was supposed to come out in like 2024. And so I think because they had pre-orders available for this thing a long, long time ago. And so I need to check that. But yeah, like a 2D platformer, side-scrolling sort of adventure game. I don't think there's a ton of action to it. It's mostly just running away from the enemy from everything that I have seen, but it's got like these full-blown animated cutscenes, and I mean, it just, from an art style standpoint, it looks exceptional. Obviously, gameplay is going to determine everything there, but from an art style standpoint, it's like that's something for sure. So shout out to Buy Sweet Carol dropping on, I am correct about that, right? Yeah, dropping on October 9th. So we got Battlefield 6 dropping on October 10th. This is going to be an interesting one to follow along with, for sure. It's going to be interesting to see kind of the buzz, and if it dies out, if it picks up, like because what we're going to talk about here in a little bit regarding EA and the whole Saudi buyout with the private equity firms and all of that getting involved in the whole leverage, and just a really, really weird situation. But I do love this trailer of like Jimmy Butler and Morgan Wallen and what was it, Patty the Batty getting fucking decimated, and then the actual soldiers running in, and then it cuts to, this is all live action, so nothing really in terms of gameplay in this trailer, but we've gotten a lot of gameplay. The beta was out, and I think it crossed over like, was it like 600,000-700,000 concurrent players? Just crazy outpouring of support for this thing, of people wanting like a more traditional military shooter to come back into the console space with Call of Duty, adding in your Seth Rogens and Beavis and Buttheads, and then just kind of dumbing down, or making, a lot of people would view Call of Duty as like a mass appealing, very casual style of shooter, but at the same time, like, people who are really fucking good at Call of Duty are really, really damn good at Call of Duty. I wouldn't call anything about them casual at all, but just the having that silliness opposed to the boots on the ground, kind of more militaristic, gritty style of shooter. I think that people are yearning for something like Battlefield to come back and have a real revival. Do I think that, I don't think it's necessarily going to overtake Call of Duty or anything like that, but I do think that even regardless of the whole Saudi buyout, I think Battlefield 6 is going to have a hell of a lot of success when it launches on, October 10th. And yeah, Little Nightmares 3 is right here alongside Battlefield 6. Probably not the best release date in the world, although I don't think that these two games share much of an audience whatsoever, but it's kind of that thing that I talk about with Grand Theft Auto, the Grand Theft Auto effect of Grand Theft Auto. The audience for Grand Theft Auto is the audience for everything. Grand Theft Auto's audience is everybody's audience. So I don't think Battlefield's quite on that level or anything even close, but it's Little Nightmares 3. I have a number of different concerns about, just in regards to development shakeup with Tarsier not being involved, and you now have Supermassive on this project, which is like beyond bizarre to me. I don't really understand how Supermassive landed this contract. I know Little Nightmares is a massively bankable, profitable little franchise, and I think it's gone on to sell tens of millions of copies, but it's the lead team behind it is now, they're working on that Reanimal game, and that looks fucking incredible. And I don't think Little Nightmares 3 looks bad at all. I'm curious to check it out. Do I know it? I can't say with full confidence that I'll be there day one to play this. I'll kind of look at reviews, see what the word on the street is. If people are really enjoying it, I'll probably hop in day one to Little Nightmares 3. But if we're talking about 6s and 7s, I doubt it. Damn, dude. October 10th is kind of loaded. We also have Dreams of Another dropping on October 10th, and this is from Q Games. This is, the people behind Pixel Junk and very, very, very creative studio. And Dreams of Another is a extremely creative video game. If we can get to the actual video game part, it's like that weird fucking ethereal kind of dream state third person shooter where, isn't it, you shoot shit and bring it to life? Let's see. Q Games game director Bayan provided an overview of Dreams of Another, the studio's upcoming shooter themed around creative destruction. It's coming to PC and PS5 on October 10th. So yeah, I think it's like you're shooting shit in this game world, which is causing like things to be created in place of what you destroyed or something to that effect. It's one I'm certainly curious about. Just based on the studio's pedigree and just weird shit like this is always, I always want to at least jump in for a little bit and check it out. So Dreams of Another on October 10th. I think this game, this ball cross pit, ball X pit, ball pit, whatever the fuck you want to call it, this is going to be one of those games that takes off and becomes a smash hit. And I'm going to be sitting there looking at it going, what the fuck? What do y'all see in this thing? Like, I have watched this trailer multiple times, and supposedly I think there was a beta available, or maybe certain influencers or something went hands-on with it, and supposedly it is incredibly, incredibly addictive. But like, I look at this thing and I'm just like, there is no chance in the world that I'll play this for more than an hour or two without just being like, not bored, but just I don't know. Nothing about this looks all that compelling to me. But I don't mean to shit on it. This is just not my style of game whatsoever. But I want to put it out there up front right now. This ball pit game, it's gonna drop on October 15th. It's going to be that style of game that is a phenomenon. Hundreds of thousands of concurrent players. I shouldn't say hundreds of thousands, but like 10,000 plus concurrent players out of nowhere smash hit ball pit. I guarantee you this thing is going to take off to levels that we wouldn't expect. But speaking of money, nobody knows money quite like Pokemon knows money. This is Pokemon Legends ZA. And is this kind of in that Arceus, in line with the Arceus style games? Because supposedly Arceus was like really, really good. Or is this back to traditional, more turn-based? Because I know that supposedly Arceus was great, but it just couldn't really run on the Switch 1. So if they're doing something that's in line with that, I'm not a Pokemon guy at all. I just kind of observe from the outside as people constantly complain about this thing that they supposedly love. I don't know. Yeah, I can't really tell from this. Let me know in the comments though. Is this more of a, you know what I mean? If it's more of like a action-based RPG, or if it is more of a turn-based style thing, because that's just, I'm very, very curious about the performance on the Switch 2, because I think it is like a Switch 1 game as well. Yeah, it comes out on Switch 1 and 2. So, it's it might still be a little switchy. It might not have quite that level of Switch 2 solely focusing on the Switch 2 for the entire development process, the entire development timeline being spent working on a Switch 1 version might compromise the Switch 2 version. But yeah, I know people like that Pokemon Arceus game quite a bit. So let's see what we have up next. So we got Double Fine's Keeper that is dropping on October 17th, exclusively on console to Xbox, and also releasing on PC. I would kind of wonder if this is just a situation of, budgetary limitations for Double Fine not being able to get this thing available on PS5 and Switch 2 day one, and it probably will come later. But I don't know. Xbox is kind of weird with that. Every now and then they go out and they just like pay for an exclusive game, even though they say they don't have any, like they don't value exclusive games anymore, but then they go and get that Space Marine game exclusively. They're a very bizarre company, but it's not available on PS5 or Switch 2. And it's one that, like, listen, here's the reality. Like, I don't think I'll be signing up for Game Pass, not at $30 a month to play this thing, which I could sign up for PC Game Pass and play it. But I don't really know, because the Outer Worlds 2, which we'll get to in a little bit, I want to buy that. Ninja Gaiden 4, I'd like to buy that physically. I don't, like, for this alone, I don't think I would sign up for Game Pass. I know Double Fine, like, there's got to be something here. You can't just be playing as a fucking clock tower lighthouse thing, jumping around doing platforming. Like, it has to be more than just that. But it definitely, it looks like that. It looks like you're just platforming around as a lighthouse, and that's I don't know. But once again, this is something that you'd have to play to really get your hands on it and kind of be like, oh, okay, now I see what they're doing here. But as of now, I have no idea what the fuck they're doing. But that's Double Fine. You shouldn't really know what the fuck they're doing. We talked about this earlier, but Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, I am really, really curious about this. Hit me in the comments. I want to know, for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, what exactly are you expecting with this? Like, when reviews drop for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, are you expecting 6s? Are you expecting 7s? Are you expecting 8s beyond? Like, what are you? I think I once again said this earlier. I hate to be so redundant, but especially in the same episode, but I'm fine if this somewhere lands in like the 74 range. To me, that would at least be like, okay, cool, I'm going to pick this up. I know I'm going to get a flawed but decent experience. Anything beyond that is like icing on the cake. This thing has had such a tumultuous development cycle, so turbulent, and this stuff right here, like the background, the choices, that's what I really want to see. And I know that doesn't necessarily showcase well in a trailer, although you look at like that Cyberpunk, what was that, E3 2018, I believe, that big 48-minute long gameplay demo where they really showed the choice and consequence and like fully went there and fully showcased the range of that, and then played it out in 2 different scenarios for you to see. I think they showed 2 different scenarios there, but yeah, that's the type of stuff that I'm the most curious about with Bloodlines 2. And I know they reversed the decision for their DLC to, their DLC is now where you can, you don't have to buy any extra version or any, like, it's all in the base game. So, or I shouldn't say DLC, but they were going to lock certain quests behind DLC, paid for DLC, and now it's like all in the base game. So shout out to Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. I'm rooting for it. I am, without a shadow of a doubt, there for Ninja Gaiden 4 as well on October 21st. That is that's brutal. Both those games on the 21st. Painkiller is on the 21st as well. The Saber. Okay, damn, Saber is developing fucking everything. So yeah, the first person shooter, obviously from back in the old days, the olden days when these first person shooter kind of linear style games could exist. But yeah, that's on the 21st. But Ninja Gaiden 4 is really probably my primary go-to. That's the game that I'm looking at on the 21st with the most, I'm the most excited for this, opposed to really anything else that's dropping on the 21st. I just think that I played Ninja Gaiden 2 Black earlier in the year, thought it was excellent. This seems to be like a direct follow-up to that. A lot of that DNA, a lot of that same gameplay kind of energy and focus seems to be applied to Ninja Gaiden 4 here, and yeah, I believe they were calling it like a spiritual successor. So yeah, and then you're seeing the kind of platinum influence in here, the Team Ninja Platinum combination coming together for Ninja Gaiden 4, and yep, I shall be there day 1 for certain. Dude, Dispatch, we'll have to put together a little list of a top 10 for my top 10 most anticipated games of October. Dispatch is certainly in that realm without a shadow of a doubt. This I am so excited for this. It's coming from the ex Telltale folks. Adhog is the name of their new studio, and it's the game where you are playing as a dispatch officer. It's pretty much a Telltale adventure game style format, but you're playing as a dispatch officer, and you are sending your superhero troops out on their routes and picking the right superheroes for the right job. And I think there's like some real-time strategy elements thrown in there as well. And yeah, this is certainly high up there. Now they're releasing it $30 for the full game. It's episodic, and I think there's a new episode dropping every week, if I'm not mistaken, for this thing. So that's the perfect release cadence. You don't want to do the thing where it's, here's a new episode for our story-driven adventure game that drops every 2 months. It's like, well, nobody's going to remember the first episode by the second month. There's a million other things that distract us every single day. I don't remember what the fuck I had for breakfast yesterday. Gotta give a shout out to Tormented Souls 2. Got its release date for October 23rd. I didn't love the first Tormented Souls. I played a couple hours of it. I was like, this is fine. It had some issues with the map, and there were certainly a few things in Tormented Souls 1 where I was just like, this isn't all that great, but I'm happy to see that it sold well. I'm happy to see that we're likely, going to get a much better game with the follow-up. That's, you go from Resident Evil 1, great game, to Resident Evil 2, all-time great game. Silent Hill 1, great game. Silent Hill 2, I like Silent Hill 1 more than 2, but most people would say Silent Hill 2 is an all-time great game. And that's kind of the trajectory that you find with a lot of survival horror titles. So, in my opinion, Dead Space 1, great game. Dead Space 2, all-time great game. So, if this can kind of live in that same range of the sequel being much better than the original, I definitely want to support it for sure. I totally forgot about this Bounty Star game altogether. This is coming from Annapurna. I think this is a day one Game Pass game as well, if I'm not mistaken, or at least it was a while back. I don't know if that deal is still in place. But yeah, this is you're playing as like a bounty hunter, and you have a mech that you're operating and upgrading as well, but you're going out and taking these different bounty jobs and having to track down. And we were just talking about, the bounty hunting system in Ghost of Yotei, but going down and tracking your enemy, tracking down the suspect, flying around in your mech in these kind of Western. It's actually that's wild. A lot of this has that Western sort of vibe that I was talking about that I would like to see Sucker Punch work on next. But you're playing in a mech 3D action game, and this looks kind of fucking sick. I'm not gonna lie. It seems like they have come a long way on the development, because early on when looking at it, it definitely wasn't, it looked a little jank, but it's looking a whole hell of a lot better now. So shout out to Bounty Star. That is releasing on October 23rd. So I got to shout this out. Beneath. This is kind of has a little bit of that, fear, time splitters-esque. They're saying, descend into the abyss and beneath, a Lovecraftian first-person survival horror adventure. So a survival horror game. It definitely, the more I'm looking at it, it definitely has some of that fear-ism going on in it. We don't get a lot of single-player linear, like, first-person shooter horror games. So shout out to Beneath. This is coming out. I just missed that. Here it is. It's coming out on the 28th to PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC. Shit, dude, I had no idea that Recreation was releasing this month. When did they announce that release date? Dropping on October 28th. This is the game where you get to go in and you can customize your racetracks, and it's got a lot of cool shit going on in Recreation. It's kind of got like Burnout meets Hot Wheels energy, where you're building your own tracks, almost like Hot Wheels-esque, but it has the kind of car combat destructibility of a Burnout or something akin to that. I've been really, really, really wanting to check this out. And I remember watching that THQ showcase, and I don't remember them stating the release date was this soon. So this has some big money behind it, Embracer money backing this. I am very, very curious about Recreation. Once again, when you're looking at October, the overall lineup for October, it's just full of big releases. So I don't know if I'll be getting to it day one. I kind of doubt I'll be getting it probably day one or even year one. But when this goes on sale, I definitely want to check it out. But I'm kind of bummed to even say that, because it's like we don't get games like that often at all. So I kind of feel guilty. Yeah, I want to see more games like that, but you just picked a horrible time to release it. This would be a game I would certainly pick up day one in most months, but October's just, I guess I should say most years, 2025 in general, has just been too fucking packed. So we got The Outer Worlds 2 dropping on October 29th, and this is, The Outer Worlds 1 was my game of the year in 2019. I absolutely adored that video game. For The Outer Worlds 2, I'm certainly looking forward to it. I think I'm probably looking forward to it more than... definitely looking forward to it more than I was with the first game, because the first game, I love Obsidian, but I wasn't really sure. Them kind of taking this on, I think, what was it? Was it Take-Two that was funding The Outer Worlds 1? I could be wrong on that, but anywho, I just wasn't sure. They often release pretty buggy games at launch, and then The Outer Worlds 1 comes out, and it was very, very damn polished. And it seems like the key thing they're focusing on here is just making a much better combat system, and then it seems that they're making a much bigger game in general. They're saying it's like twice as big as The Outer Worlds 1, and yeah, it's I'm damn excited for this. I haven't really been watching much on it in terms of like new details, new trailers, anything like that, because I just kind of want to go in blind to it, but very, very excited for The Outer Worlds 2. I know there was a lot of controversy with the price and the Microsoft wanting to charge $80 for it and then all of that shit, but thankfully that has since been kind of, I guess, fixed. I don't even know what you can't call anything that's going on in the land of Xbox right now fixed, but it's been somewhat solved, as they said it was $80 and now it's back down to $70. But The Outer Worlds 2 is dropping on October 29th, and then the day after it, Arc Raiders is dropping, and this is going to be fucking massive. Once again, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already know. Y'all are well aware this thing is going to be huge. I wonder why the trailer is for certain, the screen image for certain trailers that it's just cropped differently. I guess maybe for PCs it's the wider. Yeah, okay. Anywho, Arc Raiders, I don't have any interest in whatsoever, but I can't lie. Like, when I look at this thing, it just looks fucking good. So, what are they calling Arc Raiders? It's is it a extraction style game? Once again, this is another one that I really haven't been paying much attention to whatsoever, but I do know that this thing, like, every time I see any conversation around Arc Raiders, people, like, there's a real fandom for it. I think it's from the team that made the finals, if I'm not mistaken. And there was real support for the finals on day one, but this seems like it's catching a much larger sort of zeitgeist. It's catching a much more mass appeal, that style of market. And yeah, so it's coming out very, very soon. The old Arc Raiders. I so want to jump into this day one, and this is another one that's going to have to be a backlog purchase, or pick it up at a later date. But Mortal Kombat: The Legacy Collection on October 30th. This is the Digital Eclipse, the I don't know what you even want to call it, but the documentary that they pretty much make video game documentaries, something of that sort. And this is bundling a bunch of the classic Mortal Kombat games all into this one bundle. I think you got like pretty much Mortal Kombat. I know 1 through, I think it's the first 4 Mortal Kombat games are all in here. And then you get into, they don't have, I hope that they do a part 2 so that they can have like the PS2, the Shaolin Monks, and or maybe some DLC down the road, something like that. But I'm more interested than anything because I think they have the Game Boy version of Shaolin Monks. I don't exactly know how they're rolling it out, but it's the thing that I'm the most compelled by with this is the documentary. I am so down to see like a documentary about just the development process behind like Mortal Kombat from inception to now, just to see how far it's come and to see, you know, just the entire design philosophy around like getting that thing off the ground in, what was that, like 19, I mean, that was right around when the ESRB became a thing, because like that, I don't know if it was created specifically for Mortal Kombat, but yeah, so it just, that's once again, that style of thing right there, that commentary, that's what I'm the most curious to dive into. There's just so much history with Mortal Kombat. But Mina the Hollower on October 31st, god damn, the end of October is just stupid fucking stacked. So Mina the Hollower, I don't even think I need to dive into that much more. Coming from Yacht Club, Zelda style, you know, adventure game, whatever you want to call it, RPG. It looks fucking good. What is this? Flesh Made Fear. Horror game? That's the thing. It's like there's so many games that come out every fucking day that are legitimately like high quality video games that nobody talks about because there's just too many fucking games releasing non-stop. Let's skim through this a little bit. It's a 2-minute long trailer. Some quick cuts. Looking for some gameplay though. Definitely has a creepy, kind of feels like the intro to Silent Hill 1 a little bit. The winding roads and the tank-based controls. Old dilapidated diner. And then draining the bathtub. Absolutely got a little bit of Resident Evil 1 influence in here. I'm still kind of looking for gameplay. Like, what is there combat? Okay, yep. Maybe twin stick shootery? A little bit. Oh, is that looks like the gun you're using looks to be firing like a laser, like a steady laser beam. Interesting. So Flesh Made Fear, and that one is launching on the 31st. Great day for your Halloween launches. And so yeah, that's kind of what we'll go through there for the month of October. And then I'll round this thing out. I'll put together my list of my top 10 most anticipated games for October, and we'll build that bad boy. All right, so these I think are my top 10 most anticipated games of October. No order. So like this is just kind of the rough 10 in no particular order. So let's kind of go through this one by one and round out a little bit of an order here. So I think Flesh Made Fear would have to be number 10. It just squeezed in there. That's one that's like, oh, sheer curiosity gets it into the 10th slot there. I think at number 9, I would probably go with... Number 9 will probably go Bounty Star. Little Nightmares 3 would be at 8. 7, I think... Actually, probably Mina the Hollower at 7. Not quite my style of game. I'll definitely check it out. Once again, maybe a little bit of a sale. I'll probably wait for a sale for Mina the Hollower, but it's one I do want to check out for sure. And then I think the rest of this order, like Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection, I think would be in at number 6. And then the top 5. Yeah, this is the tough part here. 5, I actually might go buy Sweet Carol below Vampire Bloodlines 2, but Vampire Bloodlines 2 would be at 4. And then I think you go... Yeah, I think you go Dispatch at number 1. Nah, probably The Outer Worlds 2 at number 1. Dispatch at number 2. Ninja Gaiden 4 at number 3. I think those would be in order of my most anticipated games of October. If you're throwing Ghost of Yotei in there, then you probably have a different conversation with The Outer Worlds 2. It would be either Ghost of Yotei or The Outer Worlds 2. I'm not sure which I'm more excited for. Maybe The Outer Worlds 2, actually. But yeah, so I think this would be my top 10 most anticipated games of October 2025. So let's save that, and then we can view the list. And yeah, in at number 1, The Outer Worlds 2, 2, Dispatch, 3, Ninja Gaiden 4, 5, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, 5, whoa, Jesus Christ, 3, Ninja Gaiden 4, 4, Bloodlines 2, 5, Buy Sweet Carol, 6, Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection, 7, Mina the Hollower, 8, Little Nightmares 3, 9, Bounty Star, 10, Flesh Made Fear. But let me know your top 10 most anticipated games for the month, or just your number 1 most anticipated game for the month of October. But before we get out of here, let's talk about, there's a few news items that I want to discuss, but we're already running really, really long here. So let's just stick to the EA Saudi Arabia buyout, which is like, let's just stick to this one. Is this is quite the one to stick to, because there's a lot to talk about in regards to just this one story. So I guess let's just start off with top level, simple. The announcement here is that EA has announced its plans to be acquired for $55 billion by a consortium of investors led by Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. And so this is a deal that's there's also some private equity investors who are funding this deal. And listen, I'm not an economist or a lawyer. I've been trying my best to read up as much as possible on this before speaking about it and sounding like a total fucking moron. But at the end of the day, I'm probably going to sound like a total fucking moron. So correct me in the comments if I get anything wrong here. I do want to learn about this, and I have been trying my best to learn about this. But this is kind of my big takeaway, is that with this deal, the Saudi Arabia, the Public Investment Fund, and Silver Lake, which is the private equity company, and then there's other smaller investors in this as well. I think Jared Kushner's he has like a private equity company that's in on this deal as well. So this consortium, they are not paying the $55 billion in cash. They are using $36 billion in equity, and then like $19-20 billion in loans that are being underwritten by JP Morgan. So that debt, it's not like, that's not the Saudi Arabia, that's not the Public Investment Fund, that's not their debt. That's not the private equity fund, that's not their debt. That is now EA's debt. That's going to sit on their balance sheet after this acquisition. And so EA is going to have to, pay that $19 or $20 billion in debt back. Like, it just, I can't lie. I knew that this style of thing, like these leveraged buyouts, like I knew that this existed, but I didn't know that this is, that's fucking brutal, man. This seems like a brutal, awful situation for EA. And my main thought was like, well, why the fuck did EA get into this deal in the first place? This doesn't seem to benefit EA at all, really. But I guess then when you start thinking about it, it's like, well, it benefits the shareholders, right? And they're the ones who have to agree on this deal going through. It's No, it's not in any way, shape, or form going to benefit the developers. It's not going to any way, shape, or form benefit the people who are creating the games. It's not going to benefit the creatives at all. It's not going to benefit the consumer whatsoever. Because now you talk about microtransaction and nickel and diming, you're going to have to pay back $19 to $20 billion in debt. And so it's like, all right, I know you're talking about over a long term. Hopefully, God willing, they're expecting this $19 to $20 billion over the long term. But that's the thing as well. They're on the hook for the interest. So they're going to be paying back, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in interest probably every year. So this sucks for the developers over there, because now they're going to be making worse games that are monetized to hell and back, and they're going to be getting a ton of negative feedback and response from the audience. And it's like, what the fuck do you expect us to do? We're being held hostage here. And because it's not like it's the developers who get to decide if this deal went through at all. They have no say-so whatsoever. Once again, as far as I'm aware, I don't think they have any say-so whatsoever, unless there's certain, fucking top tier, like if you have one of the higher ups for one of the studios who owns a shit ton of stock, and they get to sit in on those boardroom meetings or whatever. But as far as I'm aware, this is the developers are just kind of shit out of luck in this situation. And it's, the thing that bums me out the most about all of this, because there's so much conversation surrounding like it's impossible not to get political with this. So I apologize in advance. This is obviously going to get lightly political. I'll try to keep it at best lightly political. There's so much conversation around the Saudi Arabian government going in and removing same-sex relationships from The Sims and from Mass Effect and from Dragon Age. And they're thinking that the Saudis are going to be behind this, kind of trying to impose their moral views on the developers of EA and the games that they're creating. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen at all, at least not in the short term. I think in the short term, because we've seen Saudi have these deals, Saudi Arabia have these deals with like comedy festivals and with different boxing organizations or the Live Golf, and they've had investments in these companies for a while, like different American companies for a while. And it's not like they're trying to overnight change how things are made, change how things are done, unless it's being done in Saudi Arabia, unless it's, the Riyadh Comedy Festival, where it's like, now they have rules because you're having to specifically abide by their cultural practices because you're in their home. But like outside of their home, when they're just kind of involved, it doesn't seem like they're, because they already, what is it? I don't want to speak out of pocket here, but is it SNK? I believe actually, let me look that up before I just start talking stupid. Yeah. Okay. So they own 96% of SNK, and SNK, like they got like anime style games with ladies who are barely dressed, and it's not like they're imposing their moral beliefs on the style of game that SNK is having to create, because it's not. There might be changes that have to be made if it's going to be played in Saudi Arabia, like shit like that, sure, but I don't think they're going to try to influence Western or even Eastern companies to change the way that they create their product. I'm not really worried about that, at least not in the short term at all. My biggest concern in the short term, well, for one, is like paying back that 19 to 20 billion in debt, and how is that going to get done? Like is that just going to be through egregious microtransactions in sports games? Or is that going to be through egregious microtransaction and a nickeling and diming in all games? Like, are we going to boot up Star Wars Jedi Survivor 3 and it's $3 for every hair color alteration we make to Cal? Is it going to be $2 for every beard change and haircut that we make in every different lightsaber color? Like, are we going to be nickel and dimed? Like, where is I wonder just what the line is with that. And I am almost certain that the quality of the games, I am pretty positive is going to suffer greatly. They've already been talking about they're hoping to cut costs and, get some of that debt back through AI. And it's like, well, fucking A. To what degree? Because, and I'm not even somebody, I'm not the massive anti-AI guy. I think AI can be incredibly, incredibly useful. And we've been using AI for fucking ever. I mean, auto text and there's so many use cases that we use AI every day for so many different things that we don't even think about it for. It's not, AI isn't like this everything surrounding it is evil and bad. There's so many great use cases for AI, but it's just not there on a creative level yet. And I don't know if it ever will be. I don't know if AI, sure, can it replace QA and grunt work? And yeah, I guess so. But still, every time I type something into ChatGPT or any AI system, like, I am immediately fact checking it. Because I rarely ever believe the shit it's spitting out. So you can tell me there's bugs here, there, and every other where, but like, you're still going to need people to go in and test that to make sure that, like, even if you have some sort of system that you put in place where those bug fixes can be done primarily through AI going in and doing the grunt work, it's like, you're still going to need so much oversight there because AI just fucks up constantly, dude. And generative AI, it's not even in the realm of being close to create, full blown, like, if you think that generative AI is going to be able to replace dozens and dozens of developers and you're going to cut costs there for, like, key programming roles and shit like that, you're so far gone. So I think that the most likely scenario here is that the games could just get drastically worse. Microtransaction to hell and back, or just AI slop. And I don't think, of course, we're not talking about a scenario where you're going to see the stuff that you see on the Steam, front page, and when you every day there's some new just complete garbage on the PlayStation Store or the Switch Store that's just 100% created by AI. It's not going to be like that, but it's just, I wonder how much worse the quality of the game is going to be in general when looking to recoup that $19 to $20 billion in debt. But I mean, even beyond that, I think about a situation where, like, could it be a scenario in which the Saudi Arabia is looking at this as primarily a sports video game acquisition because they're so invested with Live Golf and they're so invested. Like, I could see a scenario where they get the FIFA name back for EA and EA Football Club comes back and it is FIFA again. Like, they have major influence in the sports market. I could see a scenario where they do want to bring back Fight Night, because they are heavily invested in boxing. They're heavily invested in the UFC. EA already makes the UFC games. They're heavily invested in WWE. Will they get the license to the WWE games? Like, these are which I kind of doubt it there, but regardless, I don't know. I mean, WWE is in the trenches with Saudi Arabia. Like, they are, WrestleMania 43 is going to be in Saudi Arabia. They're constantly going over there for, like, their big pay-per-views now. I mean, they are business partners through and through at this point. And so I don't know. Saudi Arabia, maybe they could strike that deal, but in this scenario, if they're so heavily invested in their sports games, could it be a situation where they look at a BioWare, they look at a, because a big talking point right now is, are they going to close BioWare because of the same sex relationships and some of some of those moral differences? And it's like, I don't think so. I don't think you have to worry about BioWare going anywhere because of that. I think you have to worry about BioWare being shut down or sold off, primarily because, well, maybe not so much anymore, but for a long time, they were a very expensive studio to keep up and running that made very expensive games that did not sell well. And a lot of that, yes, is 100% EA's fault. Certainly it's EA's fault for Mass Effect Andromeda. Certainly it's EA's fault for Anthem. And to some degree, it's probably EA's fault for Veilguard with, transitioning it from a live service like multiplayer game into a single player core BioWare style game. But they're also like, people didn't really gel with Veilguard. I liked Veilguard a whole hell of a lot. Thought it was a really good game, but a lot of people did not like that game at all. And although it did great numbers on Steam in terms of concurrent player counts, I guess a lot of those players refunded the game because supposedly it just didn't meet EA sales expectations at all. And so those would be the reasons that BioWare gets shut down. My thing that I'm thinking about here when talking about, $19 to $20 billion in debt having to be recouped, I start thinking about BioWare, Respawn, DICE, EA Motive, the Sims team. Like, I start thinking about these guys and like, is there some way you could bundle that? And maybe this is like the best case scenario for us, the gamer. Could you bundle that and have a scenario where DICE, EA Motive, BioWare, et cetera, could they get sold off to a... But that's the thing too, guys. Like, damn, man. Who the fuck... I guess anybody would be better than the scenario they're in right now. But who... There's not a lot of great bidders out there right now. I don't think Take-Two really wants that. Like, Mass Effect and The Sims, I guess, are still very viable. Mass Effect has that TV show that's been greenlit, so you'd probably want a piece of that. But, I mean, Dead Space, I think, could still be viable. Battlefield, of course, you'd probably want a piece of that. So maybe you split these IP up and sell them off to different publishers. But, yeah, I don't know. I guess Take-Two would be the only one. Maybe Sony. That's a big... I mean, hell, what did they spend? They spent like, was it $4 billion? Was it $12 billion on Bungie? Let's pull that up. Okay. Yeah, it was $4 billion for Bungie. So that's, yeah, I mean, Sony could swing a $12 billion purchase for sure, but that's steep for Sony. They're not like on a Microsoft level or anything close to that. Even Take-Two, a $4 billion purchase would be steep for them, but I think both companies probably could swing something, or I should say a $12 billion, $15 billion, like in that range of trying to really get rid of that debt quickly. If EA's looking to get rid of that debt quickly, or maybe do you get like a really good deal on it and then some sort of bundled package? I'm thinking about this like a buy two, get one free at fucking GameStop. I don't think that's how these motherfuckers are moving and shaking at this level, but yeah, man, this is... Because that's the best case scenario, right? Where a Sony or a Take-Two gets a hold of these companies and gets a hold of these IP and can actually allow these studios to flourish and continue to make great games and not be under the gun to microtransaction the ever loving fuck out of their games. Because I think that is about to come, without a doubt. I think you're going to see the most egregious monetization practices you've ever seen from EA games very soon. And I mean, realistically, like the best case scenario is that there's some sort of government intervention and this thing gets blocked, but there's just really no, I don't think there's any practical way of doing that. I mean, there's no monopolistic path here at all, you know, even in the sports space. It's not, because you got Take-Two with NBA 2K, and there's just, there's really no avenue that this could be blocked, especially not in the gaming sector, because they don't own any other gaming companies. Well, I guess SNK, but like this isn't even somewhat comparable to Activision being acquired right after Bethesda was acquired, right after so many other companies were acquired. Like they don't have that portfolio. The public investment fund of Saudi Arabia, and I don't even think like what they're doing. Of course, once again, I hate to overly get political on this, but I'm not even necessarily against the I don't want any non-American company to come in and buy up American companies, and like I would definitely prefer if EA stays an American company, for sure, of course. But at the same time, like, I don't really look at what Saudi Arabia is doing here as like in any way, shape, or form unwise, or like, I think that what they're doing is smart. You gotta divest, and you got to, because what is it, the peak oil thing of one day there will begin a downstream, a regression of available oil, and the production of oil will decrease from that point on. We haven't reached that day yet, but that day will come, right? And so in that very moment, at that very day, they will know like that they have to divest. They have to find other investments. They have to put that oil money. It's like drug dealer terms. You got to flip that money into other businesses. You know what I mean? You can't rely solely on, just that one venture, that one endeavor, that one business. You got to invest in other, and they've been doing that. Saudi Arabia's been doing that since, like, once again, just research. I could be fucking wrong on all this shit, but I saw that they were investing in like American real estate in the 70s and 80s and shit. So they've been doing this forever and buying up farmland, and so they have been trying to divest, but and they're smart for doing that, obviously. But at the same time, I don't think that this is necessarily going to benefit us. But I don't really think, listen, Saudi Arabia, if they're not, I could be wrong. I have such a hard time seeing any world where Saudi Arabia takes over EA and all of the women characters in all of the games are completely covered head to toe. You know what I mean? I don't think that's going to be the case. I think you'll still see same-sex relationships available for an option in The Sims. I think all of that stuff will continue. I don't think they're going to have this dictator sort of mentality. And I think that a lot of it's just sports washing, or whatever you want to call it. There's definitely a degree of hypocrisy without a shadow of a doubt. Like buying these companies and owning these companies and allowing them to directly create things that are opposing your moral worldview. Like, it's very, okay, well, you can do it, but you can't type energy. And that's, but once again, it's not being done in their homeland. It's not being done. These games are being created in America, in Japan, or wherever the case may be, in China. Like, you can't necessarily have this moral dictatorship from across the world. It's I mean, you own it 100%, and maybe that's the thing. Like, we look at Xbox, Microsoft purchasing all these studios, and you hear all the stories early on of, we're given full creative freedom and we can make whatever we want and we're funded to the nines and we don't have to worry about any of it. It's like, that was great for a while, right? And then studios start getting shuttered left, right, and center, and prices start going through the fucking roof, and things got real in 2025 in regards to Xbox. And you saw the mask came off. And will the mask come off here? Probably at some point. I think that at some point, probably so. But I don't think that's a short-term worry at all. I think the bigger short-term worry is just the games are probably going to get a whole lot worse through the monetization efforts. And I've seen a lot of people talking about they're going to boycott Battlefield 6, and we talked about that a little bit earlier. And I do understand that for sure. I understand anybody, if something crosses your moral line in the sand, then act accordingly, regardless of whatever it may be. That I can't determine that for you. You can't determine that for me. Like, you have your own morals, and you are completely entitled to feel however you feel about any business and any practice that's being done under the leadership of, XYZ company. I'll speak for me personally on this, though, is that I find it tough for myself personally to feel justified in saying I'm going to boycott their games, because I am using, I don't know if you can see it, Apple fucking everything, man. I am an Apple whore. And it's like, I definitely got to watch what I say here, but when I support a company that at one time allegedly had fucking suicide nets around their entire factory and their entire warehouse so that they could prevent people from jumping to their fucking death and get them back to work, it's like, fucking A, man. I don't know if I can justify my, saying I'm not going to purchase from Saudi or from EA after this Saudi acquisition, when it's like, dude, that's pretty fucking bad that I'm continuing to buy Apple devices. I just think Apple makes better shit than anyone else. I've grown accustomed to using it. I understand the interface. Like, there's so many different moving parts. I think the camera quality is through the roof. I'm recording this on an iPhone right now. Connected to the iPhone is connected to the MacBook that I got my notes right here that I'm scrolling through on my iPad. It's like, we are in such a era of moral depravity, and there's every company that you support has skeletons a mile long. You open the closet and it just pours out with fucking skeletons. It's tough. Like, I support you and support anybody in making that decision to not support EA now. I think that's, I think that is a noble act for sure. But at the same time, I definitely listen. I'll keep it a buck. If Jedi Survivor 3 comes out and it looks sick as shit, and Mass Effect 5 somehow comes out, I don't see that happening, but if Mass Effect 5 somehow comes out, it looks sick as shit, I can't sit here and say I'm not going to go buy those games. And that's just me being completely honest with you. And maybe that is just a level of nihilism of like, fuck it syndrome, that we've gotten to such a dark place that you just give up. But yeah, I I I could understand somebody's criticism of me in saying exactly that, and I would probably agree by and large. I think I do view shit far too nihilistically, and that's probably something I could work on. But I don't know, man. I the fucking factory farming at McDonald's, I still eat McDonald's. The suicide nets with the allegedly with Apple, I still use Apple products. I can't. It would be tough for me to figure out exactly how to justify my outrage specifically for this, and not how to justify my outrage, but how to say I'm not going to support this when I support so much other horrible shit. Yeah, we should probably all just get off the grid and fucking grow our own fruits and vegetables, and yeah, it's Anywho, not to we ain't got to go on for. It's already been a 2 hour and 30-minute long recording. We'll wrap this up here. There's other news items I wanted to hit on. Some good news for Silent Hill. It seems like we're going to be getting a lot more Silent Hill, with F selling really well. But let's cap it off there. No need to extend this and make it any longer than it already is. I really want to get these down to about an hour and 30, but here we are at 2 hours and 30. Yeah. Let me know your thoughts on this whole EA Saudi Arabia situation. It's undoubtedly, I think it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, leveraged buyouts of all time. So, very big news. Very, very big news. And I don't suspect this is going to go well, but I don't suspect this is going to go well for kind of different reasons than I'm typically seeing. Like, not to rehash it, but I don't really think that. Anywho, yeah, I said the same thing 75 fucking times. No need to keep repeating it. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. I hope y'all enjoyed the podcast, and yeah, I'm gonna go and fucking, well, I guess shit, now it's 7:30. I have to take my ass to sleep here pretty soon, but might sneak a couple hours, few hours, maybe 5 hours of Ghost of Yotei in. Be up playing it till fucking 4 in the morning again. But appreciate y'all so much for tuning in, and I will see you good people in the next episode. Hit me in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on all this stuff. You can support at Patreon or become a YouTube member if you want to ensure that I don't sell this show to the Saudi Arabian government. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. See you in the next episode. Goodbye.